Paul Sweeney. This is Bloomberg Intelligence Radio. We bring you all the top news in business, economics and finance, and politics through our lens of our Bloomberg Intelligence folks. They cover 2,000 companies in 130 industries all around the world. And we're going to get to one right now, talking about the new Trump administration and what that would look like. The Wall Street Journal reporting that Howard Lutnick may actually be a commerce secretary, which would be different maybe than reporting over the last few days. We also just heard the FDIC chairman, Martin Grunberg, will be stepping down in January to retire. So let's get a little bit more on this with Nathan Dean, Bloomberg Intelligence Senior Policy Analyst. Nathan, what do you think of how a Trump cabinet and Trump official are shaping up right now?
Yeah, so I think with the appointments, what we've seen so far are really going to, I think, what President Trump's two main priorities in the first half of 2025 are going to be, and that's immigration and also tariffs/China, because what we're seeing both on the immigration side and also, just with commerce and a lot of the, the more economic picks that we've seen so far is that President Trump really does want to move forward with some of his campaign promises. For example, in the tariff scenario, he's talked about 60% goods, 60% tariff on all goods coming from China, for example. And, I think the selection of Mr. Lutnick to be Commerce Secretary sort of indicates that that's the plan that he wants to move forward with. But what we're saying is that, just remember, why do we care about these regulatory appointments? Also, not from just a, change of policy, but the more time the Congress spends confirming these appointments in the new year, meaning if there are confirmations such as Attorney General Matt Gaetz, for example, that are going to take time, that's less time that Congress can focus on other matters such as deregulation and tax reform.
Nathan, what is a recess appointment? Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, so the idea here is that if under the Constitution, if the Senate or the House are not in session, the president can come in and then make a recess appointment. Now, if this happens, essentially that individual can only serve through the next congressional term, so that person can only serve 2 years. Now, the Senate does what are called pro forma sessions. They come in every 3 days. It's usually a senator from Virginia, Maryland. They gavel the Senate open. They wait 3 minutes. They close it to prevent the president from doing that. Now, what would happen in this case is that the Senate would have to adjourn for 10 days for the president to put in a recess appointment. The Senate historically does not like doing that because then you're giving power to the presidency. The most likely scenario is that if President Trump, for example, can't get Attorney General, designee Matt Gaetz through, then he's going to go to the House of Representatives to ask the House to adjourn, because if one chamber adjourns and the other one does not agree, the president would have the authority to adjourn Congress and then therefore put in the recess appointment. I would note, however, is that Congress, from the historical perspective, would not want to do this because Congress, just remember, is one separate but equal branch of the U.S. government, and they do not like it when the president moves forward and actually does their own recess appointments without their input.
Yeah, but is this time different? I mean, it's President Trump. It's a different situation. When do you think we're going to get a Treasury Secretary, and do you think that it matters in that whomever is picked will sort of be the same kind of presence in the Treasury Secretary seat?
So I think we're going to get the Treasury Secretary pick fairly soon. The question is, are we going to get a Wall Street pick or are we going to get a populist pick? What I will say in terms of, tariffs and going back to President Trump's main, one of his main priorities, the Treasury Secretary isn't as important when it comes to the implementation of tariffs. That's really Commerce and other agencies. But, the Treasury Secretary is going to be this Wall Street-facing individual, and President Trump likes it when stocks go up into the green, for example. So I think President Trump is weighing the differences at the moment. Obviously, Howard Lutnick was reported to be part of that. Scott Bessent, Mark Rowan, for example, from Apollo. But I think we're going to get this choice fairly soon, and then we'll get the other economic choices with it, NEC chair, then SEC, FDIC, and so forth like that.
Is there a belief in D.C. that some of these more controversial selections that may be more popular, like a Matt Gaetz, for example, like a Tulsi Gabbard, that in fact Congress may push back on this, the Senate may push back on approving the nomination?
Yeah, so I think the Senate behind the scenes, and remember, this is just Republicans. The Democrats are almost irrelevant at this point because you can confirm these nominees by a 50-plus. Republicans will have 53 in the Senate. We've heard behind the scenes, Bloomberg News has done some great reporting here, that the Senate, several Senator Republicans are pushing back specifically on Matt Gaetz. We've also heard that President Trump is pushing back and is essentially having a little standoff of sorts. Now, how did it get resolved? I'm not exactly sure. Whether President Trump does a recess appointment, notice I said the word historically many, many times. Things could be different here. But what I will say is that the more time the Senate is spent fighting these or confirming these or working on these these nominees, less time is spent on things like tax reform because the Republicans have the House and the Senate. They want to move forward quickly next year to do tax reform via the reconciliation process. And the more time they spend on nominees, the less time they're going to spend on tax reform.
So you mentioned the Commerce Department really being key then for tariffs. The Wall Street Journal reporting that Howard Lutnick could become Commerce Secretary. What do you think about that pick?
Yeah, so I think this is where the soap opera version of maybe the Trump 1.0 administration comes in, because I'm sure that Mr. Lutnick is going to have more of a Wall Street-facing view of the idea here that tariffs may not be the best thing for the U.S. economy. That is in conjunction or in opposition to several of the other picks that President Trump has made. But I think this is somewhat indicative of what President Trump wants in his cabinet, his different voices. But at the end of the day, remember, this is President Trump's decision alone. He can order the Commerce Secretary or the Homeland Security Secretary or anybody to do something because they serve at the pleasure of the president. So I would say that, obviously the new, Howard Lutnick coming in as Commerce Secretary can certainly advise the president and certainly give him, I think, what the Wall Street view is. But ultimately, it's President Trump's decision whether to move forward or not.
Nathan, timing. When do the Senate confirmations, when do they happen?
So they would start happening. Obviously, Senate comes in January 3rd. The president comes in January 20th. It would start immediately thereafter. The Democrats can slow the process a little bit. They can't stop it, but they can certainly slow it. And so if these picks move forward and they're not really controversial, they can be in by January, February, and early March. If it gets to be a little bit more controversial, I think that's where things go on and the soap opera really goes into earnest. And also I would just say that, if the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, continues with his plan on the funding fight that we're going to see in December, he wants to kick the funding issue to March. We could have a government shutdown in March, all the meanwhile that this is happening.
Shh, don't say that. What are you doing to us, Nathan? Okay, let's play it out a little bit. Potentially Kevin Warsh becoming Treasury Secretary, Steve Bessent becoming the National Economic Council. Is this a Wall Street kind of situation then for you?
Yeah, so I think honestly that what it sounds like it's coming together is you'll have Commerce and Treasury be a little bit more Wall Street friendly than you would, some of the other agencies that President Trump seems to have gone with a populist tone. And I think this is going to President Trump's desire again of immigration reform, Chinese tariffs, but also having a Wall Street and an economy that works. And so I think President Trump is picking different voices from different aspects of what he wants to see. But then, they're going to fight it out. They're going to have these policies. They're going to have the, Bloomberg News is going to be doing some great reporting on what's happening behind the scenes. But then ultimately it will be President Trump's decision to move forward with tariffs or any of these immigration policies and to say move forward and get it done.
All right. Thanks so much. Super appreciate Nathan Dean, Bloomberg Intelligence Senior Policy Analyst, joining us.